Call your next witness.
It's been Michael Gardner.
You swear or affirm to tell the truth?
Yes, ma'am. Michael Garner.
And spell the first and last name for the record, please.
Michaelgarner.
How are you employed, sir?
I'm a criminal investigator, special agent with the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation.
PD before that, is that correct?
Yes, sir. I retired in June after 20 years.
20 years MPD, and now you're at TBI.
Yes, sir.
At some point during your service at MPD, did you become involved in digital forensics?
Yes, sir. In 2018, I was assigned to the organized crime unit, and some digital evidence came in, and they needed a computer guy to look at it, and that's when I started in digital forensics, which became full-time in July of 2020.
So about 6 or 7 years ago, you got your start in this.
Yes, sir.
And then full-time at MPD, what does a digital forensics person do?
We extracted evidence from mobile devices, GPS monitors, car infotainment centers, and reported those findings out to the investigators working the cases, sir.
Did you receive and have you received special training to do that sort of job?
Yes, sir. In both digital forensics and cellular technologies. Started with cellular technologies in 2012 and got my first certifications in 2014 with a Pt2 tech. And then in 2015, I started working with the electronic surveillance and communication intercepts, and I got certified on PLX through a company called Pinlink, and did a lot of call detail record analysis with PLX. And then working digital forensics, we like to try and marry the cellular technologies from the cell phone carriers with the device itself. So then I started working.
Oh, so he the guy that deal with like the videos, the cell phones, like pulling the footage from the cameras from the businesses. He that guy.
Working with applications like CellHawk and of course forensic applications like Celebrite and Magnet that would pull the data from the device and look at the CDRs.
Okay. Celebrite is like one of the top, like, you know, police can't go to Apple and unlock your phone. Like, they can't. So they go through a little thing. They go through a third party called Celebrite. It's other ones too, but Celebrite is for like law enforcement and things like that. And they decrypt your phone and they get in your phone through the third party.
You just put those together for a complete picture of like a digital footprint.
And is there still training that you do? You keep updated on this?
Yes, sir. This technology.
And no matter what you delete, like it don't matter what it is from years ago, whatever you did in that phone since you had it, Cellbrite can get the police everything. Like, I'm talking about everything.
Changes quite often. You can tell the last couple of years with 4G going to 5G, and about every 2 months I continue education with sometimes 1 hour blocks, but often 3 hour blocks of instructions on just the evolving technologies. And that's both through Pinlink with their systems and vendor neutral through Pt2 tech.
I'm going to have you explain what some of this is, but before you testified, you handed me a list, I guess, of your training hours on various digital forensic things. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
How many hours of training have you had?
Almost 1,300 hours.
Almost 1,300 hours.
Yes, sir.
And that is actual training that's not. You also do your job too, right?
Yes, sir. That is outside the scope of my work. Yes, sir.
All right. With regard to what we're going to be talking about here is cell phones, and we've mentioned it already, call detail records.
Yes, sir.
Quickly, I know that you have a presentation that helps explain the technology.
Yes, sir.
If you could just sort of quickly tell me what we mean by call detail records, if you would.
So when you sign up for service through a cell company, you've got an account with that company, and they can monitor the usage of that account, and that reporting out that we receive is the call detail records. And it's just the records of your calls, incoming, outgoing, text messages, your data usage, and they break it down so that you can be billed properly and they can make a little bit of money and you get real good service.
Do some of these call detail records have tower information on it?
Yes, sir.
And what do we mean by tower information? What am I trying to say when I say tower information?
So the cell tower is what we're talking about here. Your cell phone uses radio waves, much like a walkie-talkie or a can and two strings when you were little. But it's a wireless communication from that device to a tower that then relays that communication.
Ain't that crazy? Phones started off with a can and a string. Ain't that crazy?
To whether you called another cell phone or a landline or another country, and those communications are logged with the company.
Don't that sound crazy?
Someone like you, do y'all have access to like where these towers
Like
are?
telephones, that the ones
Yes, sir.
with the cords.
The
they started
cell
off with
site
a can and a
database
string.
I get through the FBI, a website that I have to register through, and they verify me as a law enforcement officer. And when Sprint bought, when AT&T bought Sprint, they merged their towers. They turned some of the towers off. So every time you look at a case, you want to look at the towers during that time frame, because the towers are always changing. And I get that list of towers and the list of changes from the FBI website called Indicat.
And so in your job, are sometimes you asked, or are you sometimes asked to look at call detail records that have tower information and attempt to determine approximate areas that particular device could be located in at a certain time?
Yes, sir, quite often.
And are you able to do that?
If the data is there, absolutely, yes, sir.
And have you done that one time, or have you done that a lot?
I've done that almost 1,000 times.
Almost on a day-to-day basis at MPD?
Yes, sir, daily.
And part of your job now at TBI?
Yes, sir.
Was a lot of that training, those hours, spent on that sort of concept or that practice?
Over a third of those hours are in cellular technology. Yes, sir.
Have you had occasion in the courts of Shelby County to testify as an expert on these call detail records, emphasis on location, before?
Yes, sir, I have.
One time or multiple times?
Multiple times.
State court and federal court?
Federal court was digital forensics, not cellular technology. But yes, sir.
With digital forensics, would that include extractions from cell phones?
Yes, sir.
And what is an extraction from a cell phone?
This is, we take the device, and if we are able with our software and technologies, we make a complete copy, if possible, of everything that's on that device. And then we take a copy of that, make a copy, and then we analyze that copy of what we pulled from the phone.
And to do that, do you have to be trained in the various programs and everything that extract information?
Yes, sir.
And trained how to look at it?
Yes, sir.
And have you received that training and those certifications?
I have. That's some of the other hours in there. Received training from both the vendors of the softwares that we use, things like Magnet and Celebrite, Gray Shift, and then non-vendor training through IASIS and the NCFI in Hoover, Alabama, through the Secret Service.
Your Honor, I would tender this witness, Mr. Gardner, as an expert in call detail analysis, emphasis on location, and digital forensics.
No objection.
Tell me what that tender was again.
Well, I'm not saying I got it right? Call detail records, emphasis in this case on location, and digital forensics.
is going to be based on the population, the terrain, the number of towers around it, because the device is always going to grab the nearest available tower, the closest available, not the closest available.
At some point during this investigation, did you receive call detail records for phones relating to the investigation of the murder of young Dolph?
I did.
In particular, did you receive call detail records for a telephone that was identified to you as belonging to Justin Johnson?
Yes, sir, I did.
Did you receive call detail records for a phone identified to you as belonging to Cordelia Smith?
Yes, sir.
Did those call detail records have what I'm calling tower location information?
They did, yes, sir.
Were you asked certain questions? Did we ask you certain questions about what you could determine about those phones?
Yes, sir.
All right.
The CDI was received on December 15, 2021 via email from T-Mobile in response to a search warrant submitted by Sergeant Jason Blesso, signed by Criminal Court 9 Judge Mark Ward. Sergeant Jesse Browning and ADA Paul Hangerman requested that the T-Mobile number 901-513-6236 be analyzed to determine the locations of the device on November 17, 2021 between the hours of 11 a.m. to 10 p.m.
I'm probably going to not be able to make all this out, but this is an overview of Shelby County, Memphis, Tennessee, with the locations that they had given to me with regards at these dates and times. These locations are important. Can you overlap the cell records? Just show movements. And
let me go ahead and interrupt you and try to walk us through just location for a second.
Yes, sir.
Okay, just what we have here. We have people not from Memphis to start. Okay.
Copy that.
Mississippi River, downtown Memphis. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
This is probably about where we are, right about here or something. Is that right? I think that's the bridge.
Oh, okay. I see the cursor. I couldn't see it. I apologize.
Oh,
Yes,
sorry.
that is correct.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
so downtown Memphis.
These departments
Go
right
up
here.
here to my green
The
dot
Valera
here.
gas station.
It's a few
Dolph
miles
died
away.
here.
Is that Crosstown Concourse?
And this
Yes,
is
sir.
the gospel
There
guard.
actually is a yellow line that connects. It's just probably impossible to see from where they are. And if I go to my next thing here, this is East Memphis. And the line is to Valero gas station.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct? I'm going to go here to the red dot, South Memphis. This is near the airport. This is the homicide scene at 2370 Airways.
Yes, sir.
The homicide happened right here.
And if I go down further south, we have Whitehaven over here. Further south, the Gospel Garden Apartments used to be the 2A apartments.
Yes, sir.
All right, so South Memphis, homicide scene, technically South Memphis. You familiar with the neighborhood Orange Mound?
Yes, sir.
In Orange Mound.
These two look
Valero
fun.
gas station by the University of Memphis.
University of Memphis,
East
yes, sir.
Memphis. And Crosstown next to downtown, a few miles from where we're at.
Yes, sir.
And all this, so you go back to tell me what we're looking at here. What's all this stuff?
So I loaded the call detail records in an application called PLX by Penlink. And I did that so I can pull up every cell tower within 10 miles of, of Memphis, Tennessee, dead center, not downtown, but kind of dead center of Memphis, Tennessee. And based on the cell site list that I got from Indicac, there were 563 T-Mobile towers within 10 miles of Memphis, Tennessee. But based on all of those towers, we're going to look at the ones that the device accessed during the time frame that was requested of me. that was just a zoomed in location for the Thomas I'd see it on Airways that was just north of the airport.
Okay, so this is Nikita's Cookies.
Yes, sir.
Airways Boulevard.
Yes, sir.
Is that where you take back up?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
This is a screenshot of that we received from T-Mobile. This is one of the first pages of the call detail records. And what we've got here is the name and address of the subscriber, this top red box. And it comes back to Superior Guy.
And Blunt did it.
And the address of 2667 Vice. And then at the bottom, the activation and termination dates of this account. So when was this account created? And the activation date was on 9/22 of 2020.
Through the investigation, are you familiar with that to be a relative of Justin Johnson?
Yes, sir, that's correct. That's Justin Johnson's sister. And this is the subscriber information for the second phone number. The name and address of the subscriber, Cornelius Smith.
Shit.
And the subscriber address of 1766 Wild Rose in Memphis, Tennessee.
So Smith's phone is actually subscribed to him, or he's actually a listed
Yes, sir.
subscriber?
Yes, sir.
And Johnson's phone is the sister?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Damn.
And then the activation and termination dates, at the time of we received this, it was activated on 9/25 of 2021.
All right, looks like we're beginning with the questions that you were asked to analyze with regard to 236-1625, which you testified as the phone described you as Justin Johnson's.
Yes, sir. And these were the questions that, from our meeting, that they were asking, am I able to determine from these records if the device left the crosstown concourse? If I was able to determine if the device went to the Valero gas station at Park and Highland, am I able to determine if the device returned to the crosstown concourse? And then again, did the device leave crosstown again? And was I able to determine where the device was during the time of the murder? So it's 12:21 p.m. to 12:23 p.m. Then was I able to determine if the device went to the Gospel Gardens apartments? And did the device return to the crosstown concourse after that? Those are the questions that were asked me. That was the basis of what I was looking for during this analysis. So the call detail records come from T-Mobile in the UTC, Universal Time Coordinated. The records come universal so that no matter where you are in the world, you can adjust the time to your local time. And our software does that, and we can do that looking at the data. So I make a copy, and then I analyze the copy of these call detail records. And at this time, we were outside of daylight savings. So our time zone here in Memphis, Tennessee is UTC -6. Spring forward, fall back. So I adjusted the call detail records to our local time zone. I did not leave them in UTC time. And then the second phone number, the 901-513-6236, again, these records were received from T-Mobile in UTC, and I adjusted the time zones on them as well. And only question asked on this phone number were between the hours of 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. what towers were being accessed by this device. Now, they asked me until 10 p.m. There was no activity on the device from, I think, 5:48 p.m. to 10 p.m. That's why the hours 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. is listed in this slide, because there was nothing to look at after 5 p.m.
Okay.
So 5 p.m.
What language you
10 p.m.
speak?
there was nothing.
And this is the Cornelius Smith phone?
Yes, sir. So these were the tools that I used to look at this information. I used a program, it's a web-based, called CellHawk. I used it to reflect local easily in Microsoft Excel, and also used PLX by PinLink, and those are the versions of software that I used on this case, on the records. And what you've got is the date and time, and then I changed it from UTC to Central Standard. An outgoing call going to 901-210-0852, and it lasted 1 minute and 43 seconds. And that tower provides coverage for the area of the Valero gas station.
All right, we're talking about entirely a separate area of Memphis, right?
Yes, sir.
So
The University of Memphis area.
University of Memphis is right here. So the Valero's here.
It's the green pin. Yes,
Green
sir.
pin, green pin.
Yes, sir.
The green pin here is Valero Station. And we're so far away from Crosstown that this is not on this map. Is that
It is
right?
not, no, sir.
It's going to be up and over here somewhere. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And that highlighted row right there was the data that I mapped. That's from the record. Is just south of the Crosstown concourse. That I have a pin dropped. It's inside the shaded area as well.
It's at 9:56 a.m.
Yes, sir. Then there was an outgoing voice call made to 901-201-9581 at 11:30 and 13 seconds. That access tower is 65731, sector 13, azimuth 300, which is facing kind of northwest. That lasted for 112 seconds.
It's not on this map anymore, but
No, sir.
it would be, and this is at 11:30.
Like time.
11:30 and 13 seconds.
So by 11:30, the device has left the Crosstown area.
Yes, sir. It's accessing towers that are south of the crosstown. Then this is a screenshot of the raw data of the tower that I just mapped with the outgoing call to 201-9581 that lasted for 112 seconds. And there was an outgoing call to 901-246-0101 at 12:06:07 p.m. that accessed tower 158660, sector 3, azimuth 290. And that antenna is facing west-southwest, and that lasted for 3 seconds. And then an incoming call from 901-315-9866 at 12:09 that accessed tower 165641, sector 132, azimuth 145, facing southeast. There was no duration on that call. Those two calls access the towers that are facing each other, the antennas that are facing each other from those two towers.
Okay, so we have two calls right there, 2 or 3 minutes apart, 12:06 and 12:09, and they're accessing these two towers, which are
Yes, sir.
near each other, pointing next to each other.
The antennas are pointing almost directly at each other, providing coverage for that area.
Okay, and do we have any pins? Do we have any pins for things we've seen before on this map?
Oh, no, what they do.
There is a pin, but it's off map. That's the area of Lamar and Sims. The Valero gas station is not on there. It's too zoomed in too close to see the homicide scene, or because that's the writing on the left is the end of the homicide scene marker.
right on the left.
That highlighted to the left of the screenshot, towards the bottom left corner.
Bottom left corner?
Come up just a hair.
Oh, here.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is the homicide scene.
That's the pin that I put on the map, notating the homicide scene.
Okay. And you got it cut off because I guess it's right here.
Yes, sir.
So we're in
We're west of, I'm sorry, east of the homicide scene.
we're slightly east of the homicide scene.
Yes, sir.
Crosstown's way north.
Yes, sir.
Downtown's way west.
Way west. Yes, sir. And then next slide, that's the data that I mapped on the slide before, the towers that were accessed. And then at 12:17.
12:17, we're getting close to homicide time. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Somewhere between 12:21 and 12:23 or 4.
Yes, sir. And we've got an outgoing call to 901-519-1799. And that device accessed tower 164286, sector 131 with an azimuth of 90, which is facing directly east. And that call lasted for 6 seconds. And that tower is in the Airways in Lamar, the area of Airways in Lamar, just north of the homicide scene.
Catch up real quick over here.
Yes, sir.
Okay, 12:17. If we could reverse one slide. 12:17. Towers here. Is that towers here?
Yes, sir.
And well, that's not you doing that. What is our? We have a pin on this map.
There's no pin on this map. The homicide scene is off screen towards the bottom.
Airways. Trying to figure out how far up it is. You have a landmark on this. We'll see it better on the next map.
Yes, sir.
Okay. But the homicide scene is over here somewhere.
It's just south, so towards the bottom of that map,
Okay. Here.
because you've got Airways that's running north and south, and we need to get closer to the inner. And again, this is the data that was mapped of that outgoing voice call. And then at 12:22:40, the session lasted 6 seconds.
Okay. And
That tower right there could provide coverage for the homicide scene.
okay, so this tower right here,
Yes, sir.
south, and like we said before, this is not a boundary. This is for illustrative purposes.
Yes, sir. Correct.
Homicide scene is the red dot here. Is that right?
That's correct.
I mean, if it can see my cursor, but we have homicide scene, yellow line. So McCade is here. And the tower is north of the homicide scene.
Yes, sir.
We're in the neighborhood of Orange Mound. And this is 12:22:40. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
What is this blue shaded area?
Bruh.
That is the mapping of
Trying
a
to be cool.
previous cell tower that was accessed, that was north of the homicide scene.
Oh, okay, I got you. So we've already looked at that. We've already looked at that one.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then we come down here for 12:22, and we're on the tower that could provide coverage to the homicide scene.
Yes, sir. And this is the data session that was mapped at 12/22/40. The 12/23/05, there was an incoming voice call from 901-315-9866. That call was not answered and it was sent to voicemail. And that accessed Tower 164-286, Sector 131, azimuth of 90, which is facing east. And then
I think we went back, I'm sorry, I think we went back with 2 seconds. Okay. So now we are less than a minute from that last phone call, is that right?
yes,
And I see the orange mound.
this is the tower that's north of the homicide scene.
North of the homicide
Yes, sir.
scene.
Airways in Lamar, just north of.
All right. So would it be fair to say the phone has moved at this point? Or yes or no?
That phone just accessed that tower. I don't know where it would be.
Is this tower close to the other tower?
Yes, sir. That was the previous slide where you saw the little slice of shaded blue north of. That's that tower.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. So let's go back to that slide. I thought you had said this was a previous call, but is this a
That is a
subsequent
previous call,
Okay.
but then the device reconnects to that tower again.
Okay. So 1222, the one that could cover the homicide scene.
Yes, sir.
1223, we're back up on this tower that is north of the homicide scene.
Yes, sir.
Could this tower also cover the homicide scene?
I wouldn't know that unless I was able to do like a drive test on it to see the coverage that tower could
So would it be
extend out.
Would it be impossible to say yes or no to that?
Without testing, it'd be impossible. Yes, sir.
Now, do also see, because the pins are so hard to see from far away. This is Bradley Street, an address on Bradley Street. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, if we could skip forward.
And if we'll back up one, that slide there, that unanswered call that the device accessed the tower just north of, where you can actually see the shaded corner, that device then reconnected to the tower just south of it. When that unanswered call was sent to voicemail, it accessed that tower, 29098, sector 23762, azimuth 98 is facing south. So you have an incoming call that accessed the tower north of it. That call is not answered, and it's sent to voicemail. And that transaction connected to the tower just south of it. That's what we're seeing right there.
And the tower just south of it, is it this tower?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And this is the same tower we saw at 1222 that covers the homicide scene.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So to get this right, there's activity at 1222 at a tower that covers the homicide scene.
Yes, sir.
There's activity at 1223, which is the call and voicemail,
Yes, sir.
which accesses two different towers.
Yes, sir.
One is this tower north of, I don't know if I'm doing that or not. One is this tower slightly north of the homicide scene
Yes, sir.
that may or may not cover the homicide scene.
Correct.
And then when voicemail picks up or whatever, same call, different activity, it accesses the tower south of it.
Correct. Access is a separate tower. Yes,
Which
sir.
is that same tower that services the homicide scene.
Yes, sir.
Does that necessarily mean that the phone was moving at the time since it went one tower to another tower?
It could be indicative of movement. It could be that tower that services the homicide scene is just north of the interstate, and if there was a lot of traffic, that tower could get full and it would shift off its it would say it's a busy, full, no more traffic, so it would pass off its communications to another tower.
Okay. Would it be fair to say then that these towers are close enough to each other that it could mean the phone is moving, or it may not mean that the phone is moving?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay.
And this is the transaction is listed in the records of the incoming call and being sent to voicemail that I mapped out. And had 26 different calls between 12:58:33 and 1:57:50 that access this tower in South Memphis. It's going to be Tower 157889. Two sectors, 3 and 13. That's going to denote the antennas. You have more than one. Facing the north-northwest, that azimuth of 345. And that cell tower provides coverage for the Gospel Gardens apartments.
So now we're about 30 minutes or more, a little bit more after the homicide, and the phone's in an entirely separate area of Memphis.
Yes, sir.
Entirely separate tower.
Correct.
Vastly different coverage.
Yes, sir.
Vastly different towers. But we are the tower that would service the Gospel Garden apartments.
Yes, sir. And that is just all 26 calls from the records that I mapped out.
From 30 minutes after the homicide to over the course of the next hour.
Almost an hour exactly, yes, sir. And then there were 44 calls that I mapped out from 2:22:45 p.m. until 5:23:18 p.m. And these access towers, 156814 and 156815, two different antennas, antenna 5 and 15, with an azimuth of 240 degrees, and antenna 133 with an azimuth of 300. So that device was hitting that tower with those different antennas 44 different times between those, actually it's a 3-hour time period.
So the phone has left the coverage area for the tower that covers the Gospel Garden apartments.
Yes.
Which is South Memphis.
Yes.
It has traveled substantially east. Is that
yes,
correct?
Sir.
And I'm looking at the map here. Is it Hickory Hill? Is that what we're talking about?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the Hickory Hill area of Memphis. And that is 222 to 523?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Those are the 44 transactions that I mapped out for that 3-hour time period. Well, it's very difficult to see. It was very difficult to put into a presentation. What we're seeing is 13 calls that I mapped out. Kind of shows the device moving in a north from the Hickory Hill area towards the Baptist East location of Walnut Grove and Interstate 240. And those calls, last tower hit at 5:48 on that northernmost tower at the very top of that picture. And those transactions just show that device moving northbound. And the 5:48, that was the last data from that device I could map from the CDRs. So we go from Hickory Hill on the bottom and just head north. those were the 13 transactions that I mapped out.
All right, that was the Justin Johnson phone. 513 is the Cornelia Smith phone?
Yes, sir. The 513-6236. And there was no data to map between 11 and 12. It asked for 11 a.m. to 10 p.m., but from 11 to 12 there was nothing for me to map. There was no transactions there. And then from 12 to 1, you had 5 different calls that I have listed here that accessed towers, I guess around the Lamar and Sims. So starting at the top, you've got an incoming voice call from 901-213-7867 that came in at 12:01:26. That call accessed tower 158661, sector 13, azimuth 290, facing west-northwest. And that call lasted 1 minute 12 seconds. Then a second incoming call from 901-236-1625 at 12:02:55 that accessed tower 158661, sector 13, azimuth 290, facing west-northwest as well. That call lasted 9 seconds. You have a third call, incoming call from 901-236-1625.
All right, well, wait a second. I got distracted because something caught my attention. This last call we talked, these last 2 calls we talked about at 12:02 and 12:04.
Yes, sir.
All right. It's an incoming call from 236-1625.
Yes, sir.
Well, we know what number that is.
That is Justin Johnson's cell phone number.
Okay, so we're looking at Cornelia Smith's call detail records.
Yes, sir.
And at 12:02 and at 12:04, he receives phone calls from Justin Johnson's phone.
Correct, sir.
Okay.
Then the fourth transaction, incoming call from 901-273-4691 at 12:11 that accessed tower 156958, sector 12, azimuth 270, which is facing west. There was no duration recorded for that call. And then at 12:51, the last call that I mapped was an incoming voice call from 901-273-4691 at access tower 161877, sector 13, azimuth 340, which is facing northwest. And there was no duration for that call either.
So it looks like with regard to Mr. Smith's phone, you're going to be able to map some stuff at 12:01, 12:02, 12:04.
Yes, sir.
12:11. But then not any time between 12:11 and 12:51.
Correct.
Okay, which would be the time the homicide would fall in there.
Yes, sir. And these were the towers that were accessed, and you can't really see the date and time that they were accessed. There were 3 calls on the that tower 158161, bottom tower. 3 calls there, and the times 12:01, 12:02, and 12:04. And then the other 2 towers, the calls.
Does that, there's no pen, but I can see now. That would provide coverage for the Lamar and Sims area, wouldn't it?
Correct, yes, sir.
Okay.
And then the 12:11 call access tower there at the top right. And then the 12:51 call access the tower there in the dead center.
The 12, the one I'm on right now is 12:11, is that right?
12:11:52. Yes, sir.
12:11. We provide coverage for the Orange Mound area of Memphis, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I see there's a pin, this is Bradley, is that right?
That's correct.
And then, so this one's 1211-ish, is that what you said?
Yes, sir.
And then I move over here to this tower on the left, but that's 1251. So
That's
we've had a
1250.
good 40 minutes has passed.
Yes, sir.
And now I'm again in the Orange Mound area, and here's Bradley Street.
Yes, sir.
Homicide scene is this red dot.
That is a pin I dropped to the homicide scene. Yes, sir.
Tell us what that phone does after 1251.
The next hour I looked at from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. There were only three transactions that could map out. That was an incoming call from 901-273-4691 at 1 o'clock. And that access tower 65664, sector 11, azimuth of 90, which is facing east. And there was no duration for that call. Then there was a second transaction was an incoming voice call from 901-900-3143 at 1:14:54. That access tower 65664, sector 1, azimuth of 90, was facing east as well. No duration recorded for that call. And then the third transaction from 901-900-3143 at 1:41:21. That access tower 65664, sector 1, azimuth 90. If there was an abnormal completion on the call, there'd be a system glitch or kind of hiccup. There would be a no duration there.
Okay. But it still shows an event on the phone?
In the
A no
records.
duration call still
Yes,
shows
sir.
an event as far as records go?
Yes, sir.
And you're still able to use if it provides location, you're still able to use that location?
Yes. So, looking at the records, the calls that came in, there were only 2 calls. They were incoming and not answered, and then they went to voicemail. But you have to look at the records and the definitions page to determine that. And
Before we do the second part of the stream, cause it looked like these videos gonna be quick to edit, but when we do the second part of the stream today, when we like do the regular topics, I'ma hop off for a little bit, then hop back on. So the stream should be over at 2. I'ma get off, edit these motherfuckers, then get back on like at 5.
what I have circled here are the service codes, and luckily we ask for what these service codes mean, and they give us a definitions list.
If anybody in here, and if you missed the first part of the trial, part 1 dropping on my YouTube at 10:30.
So I can look at their definition of what a service code means, and the 028 as defined by T-Mobile.
The other 2 halves, just to let the part 1 marinate or whatever, the other 2 halves will be dropping after stream. Part 2 will be dropping at 4 o'clock, and part 3 will be dropping at 6 o'clock.
Will tell us that a call that came in, it was not answered, but then it was.
And it depends how many people take this stand too. So far, it's 2 videos.
Forwarded to one of T-Mobile's voicemail service numbers, voicemail service 1-360-842-9999. And those 2 calls that show us 4, they access the same tower 65664, sector 1, with an azimuth of 90. The voicemail that was left was 5 seconds, and the second voicemail was 3 seconds. And we can get that from the raw data that we see right there. And then that is a mapping of that tower The 65664, Sector 1, Azimuth 90 facing east, that's the tower that we mapped out.
This is 1 o'clock.
But it should taste like
One.
berries, man. That purple
14,
cream.
141, 142, 146, 147.
I got cream.
Yes, sir.
And we are tower that services Orange Mount. And this is Bradley Street, that's the pin.
Yes, sir.
Could that tower provide coverage for Bradley Street?
That tower could provide coverage for Bradley Street, yes.
Okay.
So there were 17 calls between 2
And let-
p.m.
Yeah, let me back up.
Yes,
For the slides we just saw, is everything incoming?
between
Between
1 and 2, everything was incoming. There was no outgoing phone calls made.
everything's incoming. Does everything go to voicemail?
Nothing was answered, and everything was sent to voicemail.
Okay, so everything's incoming, everything's not being answered, goes to voicemail. Tower that covers Bradley Street. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Got to be consistent with the phone having been left behind. No one to tend to it.
Could be. If the calls are not being answered, yes, sir. So between 2 p.m. and 3 p.m., there were 17 calls that came in. This is going to get a little, wouldn't say messy, but the first and second, they weren't 2 calls. That was 1 call. It was an incoming call that was not answered and went to voicemail. Then the 4th call and the 5th call was another call that came in unanswered, was sent to voicemail. The software can show that, tell you that's not 2 different transactions. That was an incoming call, was not answered, and it was sent to T-Mobile's voicemail number. And looking at the service codes, again, the 028 tells us the service codes, they're circled. That the call came in, it was not answered, and it was forwarded one of T-Mobile's voicemail numbers. So you had a series of incoming and outgoing calls of those 17 between 2 and 3 p.m.
Okay, so what is the first outgoing?
First true outgoing call was at 2:39:33 to 273-4691.
So the first true outgoing call, 2:39, is that what you said?
2:39.
You said that.
And these were the towers that were accessed on that top tower.
Gotcha. Everything incoming.
Yes, sir.
Tower that could cover Bradley, Orange Mound. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
And then the device starts accessing 2 different towers, the tower shown at the bottom.
Once we have that outgoing call at 2:39, then
There
at
it is.
2:40 and at 2:56. A bunch of different times.
Yes, sir.
2:43,
I was gonna
2:47,
edit my video,
2:48, 2:50,
but I got
2:52, 2:53, 2:55. We start accessing different towers
Different towers, yes, sir.
south of where we were.
And those towers provide coverage for the area of Lamar and Sims. And then between 3 p.m. and 4 p.m., there were 25 different calls, both incoming and outgoing. 25 between 3 and 320, device access tower.
Hey, to put it in perspective, because I know this is a little boring, and I know a lot of motherfuckers probably dozed out and stuff. The main number right here is straight drop. This straight drop calling, he is calling the hell out of somebody.
158-661.
The 901 number is straight drop number.
Sector 13 with an azimuth of 290 that was facing west. There were 13 calls, 3 incoming and 10 outgoing. Again, item number 6 and 7 is an incoming call. The number was busy this time, and it went to voicemail. And we're told that by service code 29. And then after between 3:20 and 4 p.m., the device is going to move around the city, so we're going to see a bunch of different towers being accessed after 3:20 p.m. So this tower. So the red dot is the pin that I dropped notating the homicide scene. The tower just to the right of it was a tower that device was accessing for that first 20 minutes between 3 and 3:20.
That's Lamar and Sims.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And then when it gets into the downtown area, I kind of broke those up because it got real congested to look at. So you see the towers that were accessed between 3:40 p.m. and 3:55 p.m.
And all these towers are downtown Memphis?
Yes, sir.
And these towers are all close to each other. I'm looking here. This is one area of downtown Memphis. And our time ranges are...
This is between 3:44 and 3:55 p.m.
Okay. So accessing towers in downtown Memphis?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You can proceed.
And then this is still different towers in downtown.
Okay.
3:58 p.m. and both of them 3:58 p.m. The calls were bouncing off, accessing tower to the right and then accessing the tower to the left. And then there were only 2 calls between 4 p.m. and 5 p.m. One outgoing voice call from 901-864-2309 at 4:18. That call access tower 161877. Sector 1 azimuth 70, which is facing east-northeast. And then the second incoming voice call 901-318-7238 at 4:59. That access tower 154315, sector 14 azimuth 56, which is facing east-northeast. And that's what I have mapped on the next slide. Those are the 2 towers that were accessed at 4:18 and 4:59 p.m. The tower
Tower north of Bradley.
Tower north of Bradley at 4:59, and the tower providing coverage for Bradley at 4:18. So, based on the mapping information that...
Okay, we're about to switch back to the first phone. We're going to get a summary, is that
yes,
right?
sir. We're going to summarize...
I may interrupt you and ask you a couple of questions, but we're going back to Justin Johnson's phone?
Yes, sir. 901-236-1625. And this is all information that I mapped out from T-Mobile. Device, it was accessing the tower. They're providing coverage for the crosstown concourse from midnight to 2:35 a.m.
So consistent with the area of crosstown up till 2:35 a.m.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And then the device accessed a tower that could provide coverage for the Valero gas station at 3:18 a.m.
Entirely different area of Memphis, right?
Yes, sir. Near the University of Memphis.
Okay.
The device then returned to the area of the crosstown concourse by 4:49 that morning a.m.
Okay.
The device was accessing a tower that provided coverage for the crosstown concourse from 9:56 a.m. to 11:06 a.m. then the device was accessing towers that provided coverage for the area of Lamar and Sims from 12:02 to 12:10 p.m.
Different area of Memphis than Crosstown.
Yes, sir.
So by 11:06,
Uh,
well, by 12:02, it's in the area of the coverage area, including Lamar and Sims.
Yes, sir.
And is that also the time frame in which we see the phone calls from this phone to Cornelius Smith?
Yes.
Okay.
Next slide. Right. The device was accessing towers that provide coverage for the area of 2370 Boulevard during the time of the shooting between 12:22 and 12:23.
Towers that cover homicide scene, time of homicide.
Yes, sir. Then the device went to the area of Shelby Drive and Tulane Road from 1 p.m. to 1:59, which was the Gospel Gardens area.
Entirely different area of Memphis.
Yes, sir.
Tower provides coverage to the Gospel Garden, used to be called the Tulane Apartments.
Yes, sir. Then the device went to the area of Hickory Hill Drive and Valleydale Drive from 2:22 p.m. to 5:26 p.m. It was in the Hickory Hill area.
Leaves the area of the Gospel Garden.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And then the device went to the area of Walnut Grove and Humphreys Boulevard from 5:42 p.m. to the 5:48 p.m. There were no records to map after that.
Okay, so you didn't get any more records with location information that you could map after 5:48.
Correct.
Okay. Now this is Cornelius Smith's phone.
I'm going to summarize the phone number for Cornelius Smith, 901-513-6236. And this is also based on the information that I got from T-Mobile. The device was accessing towers that provided coverage for the area of Lamar and Sims and 1168 Bradley between 12 p.m. and 1 p.m. And the device continually accessed a tower that provided coverage for 1168 Bradley from 12:28 p.m. to 2:38 p.m.
And it's during that time period that everything's incoming?
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Agent Garner.
Yes, sir.
My name's Luke Evans. I'm just going to have a few questions for you this afternoon.
Yes, sir.
If there's any point in time you don't understand my question or you can't hear me, something like that, just let me know. I'll be happy to repeat the question.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, kind of first thing I wanted to talk to you about is, I think right off the bat, you were telling us that, you know, the idea of looking at call detail records and matching them with cell phone towers to try to figure out any sort of general area where a cell phone might have been is not a perfect science at all.
That's correct.
Right.
It's not.
Lot of different factors that can affect the reliability of the information.
Yes, sir.
And I think you've hit on some of those, and you've said this, you're in no way, shape, or form here today to try to say where a cell phone was at a particular point in time.
Not at all, sir. Yes, sir.
Right? Now, you said essentially you can talk about kind of a general area, right? Or
Yes, sir.
based on the towers. Now, first thing, kind of helpful to talk about what area means, right? A general area. I know you've said at certain points in your testimony that, especially your summary, that the cell phones at times were in places where they were in the area of, concourse, crosstown,
Yes, sir.
and towers that service that area.
Yes, sir.
Right. But fair to say, there's a lot of towers, and I think you spoke about this at the beginning of your testimony, related to T-Mobile.
Yes, sir.
But 500 and something towers, was it, in the greater Memphis area?
563 within 10 miles of Memphis.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And so, quite a few towers, and the reason that there are so many towers is because cell phone companies want to keep their customers happy, right?
Yes, sir.
And so, the idea of these call detail records and their inclusion, like the latitude, longitude, cell phone companies don't do that because they're trying to figure out where their where people are to a certainty, correct?
Oh, not at all.
They're doing it because they want to figure out how, customer satisfaction, right?
Yes, sir.
They want to be able.
There is an incoming call that's unanswered, and
That's crazy. I like.
And is that the call that goes over 2 towers?
yes, sir.
Okay. And hits 2 separate towers. And isn't there another data usage in that minute, that 12:23 minute?
Myself.
And I'll refer you to your report, page 45 of your report. It says the data that was mapped. And specifically, it references the second entry, data entry there down, references tower 65681, 122308, and the tower being at 2160 East Rains Road.
Yes, sir.
Now, you didn't map that particular data entry, right?
No, sir.
And you're pretty familiar with the Memphis area, right?
Yes, sir.
And where Rains Road would be. You would agree with me that that would be down towards the Memphis airport.
It's right there at Rains and Airways. I know where the tower is. Yes, sir.
So I'm going to hand you a document. And this is, I want you to give that a look. Does that look like the mapping of Cellhawk?
Does that have a page number?
This is, I'm about to ask him if he can recognize it. It's going to be an exhibit.
It could be, yes, sir. I recognize the icons used for the pins that are dropped on it. Yes, sir, from South Hall.
He's showing it to us.
Thank you. Okay, so this is a particular page out of that page? No, it's not. It's not in there.
Not
Okay,
in there.
Good. Okay, I see, good. This is a map of different locations in Memphis. And I'm just gonna,
I'm not here to get some drink. So,
it's got the Memphis airport sign in the
they
middle of
got
the
them
page.
big ass, cheap
FedEx
ass
word
motherfucking fountain
next to
drinks,
it.
nigga.
240 is the gray intersection going through the middle of the page. And it's got 4 pink areas that the witness has been speaking of as areas of from cell towers, I think is what you mark it.
Yes, ma'am.
We'll mark this as exhibit 65 to the end.
Thank you, Ron. Do you still have a copy of that in front of you?
I do not know.
I'm going to hand you back what's been marked as Exhibit 65. I've got a copy myself. And I'd like you to look at that as basically in reference to the 1223 calls. And I think you would probably agree with me that these calls and one over here,
Yes,
is
sir.
that one that you recall the same point in time displaying in your report?
I don't know. I would have to look at the tower number and look back at my report.
Okay. And you can feel free to refer to, if you want to look back at your report to see if that matches. And if you recall, I think you testified at 12:17, there was a voice call to tower 164286 to the tower north of Nikita Cookie and the scene of the homicide.
Yes, sir.
You said there's a data usage at 1222 to tower 29098 north of Nikita Cookie, which would be this one here, correct?
Yes, sir.
29098.
That's correct.
And then you've got a 122305 voice call to the north of Nikita Cookie at 162486 that you noted.
Yes, sir.
Right, and then you've got another hit on the same tower at 122306, 29098, which is the one north of Makita Creek.
Yes, sir.
Right? Now, you've also got this one, and I don't think this one got mapped, for 122306. It's a voice call to tower 21198, which is in this area of I-240, west of Makita.
I do not have that one mapped, no, sir.
Okay. And so, and you don't have any dispute that these are basing on the same call detail records that you would have had in relation to this phone number, purporting to be Mr. Johnson's phone, correct?
Correct.
All right. And then down here, the call detail records show at 122309, tower 6581, which is down here next to the airport.
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, based on what you know of this area, would it surprise you, or would you know that it's about 3 miles from the Kita Cookie to this tower here on 240 or near 240?
It could be.
Could be.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let me ask you this: if CellHawk allows you to pull a line right from one point to another
Yes, sir.
point, and if the CellHawk software actually pulled a line from Makita Cookie to that point and said it was approximately 3 miles, would you have any reason to disagree with that?
I would agree with that. Yes, sir. Absolutely.
All right. And then this part of Airways, excuse me, down here at 1223 from the airport, would you dispute that if the CellHawk software showed it from its mapping capability that this cell tower is about 3.2 miles from Makita Cookie, from there to here?
Yes, sir. I would agree.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So, number one, was there any particular reason why you didn't map out either of these 1223, either data usages or calls that occurred, the one out here at I-240 or the one down here at the airport?
No, sir. I did not map those out, sir.
And again, you can see we're not talking about it exact science here, but within a minute, this cell phone, the one that is associated with Mr. Johnson, is hitting off, what, 2, 3, 4 towers
Yes, sir.
that are miles away from one another.
Yes, sir.
Right. And within this period of time, you would agree with me, and again, these mileages are as the crow flies, as they say.
Correct. Yes,
right?
sir.
Or as the
Line of
towers
sight.
see it.
Yes, sir.
No one's, in less than 30 seconds, no one's getting from up here around Dietrich Avenue down to the airport,
Correct. Yes, sir.
right? They're not driving that far going there.
No,
Right?
sir.
Okay. Now, you mentioned an address in your report, and I'm not going to say the first numbers. It's on that exhibit in front of you. It's up here right under Orange Mountain, and it's Pfizer Road. You remember that address as being the one associated with?
That was in the subscriber records.
That's right. And I don't have your page number in front of me, but you would agree that that's the subscriber information associated with the phone for Mr. Johnson.
2667 Pfizer Road.
Yeah. You don't have to say the number. I'm just saying
Yes, sir. That's correct.
that was the phone associated with Mr. Johnson.
Yes, sir.
Right. And as far as the subscriber information, and it's right up here, not very far from what we've got marked down here is Bradley Avenue, or their address of Hernandez Govan.
Yes, sir.
Right there in that same area.
Yes, sir.
So you talked about cell phones hitting the nearest available tower,
Yes, sir.
right? A lot of things can affect availability, right?
Yes, sir.
Congestion, like too many people, right?
Yes, sir.
On a particular cell tower, and you said it could even shift mid-call for people if there's too many people on it, right?
Yes, sir.
Like you can be on a call, and if it gets overly congested, it may direct you to a different tower.
If the device is stationary, I don't see that it would hand off.
Okay.
If the device is moving, I could see that it would hand off.
So what happens if you're on? Because I understood your testimony earlier to be, look, if you're on a tower and it gets too many people on it, it may transition you to a different tower.
You're already on that tower, so it wouldn't let you go. It would not let new traffic on.
Okay. All right. If you're in some of these areas, and like we can see, they can go.
What the fuck is this fool talking about, bruh? What the hell?
Maybe as much as 3 miles, right?
Yes, sir.
So even when you're saying someone's using and servicing a tower in the area of Pt2 at a particular time, that could give or take 3 miles in different directions, obviously.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
And the same goes for any of the locations, whether it's Valero gas station
Yes.
or crosstown concourse.
Yes, sir.
You talked a little bit about coverage area, and there was one question that Mr. Hagerman asked you about, and about whether this tower would cover this area, and you said, I can't answer that. I didn't do a drive test.
Yes, sir.
Okay. What is a drive test?
Drive test is where the Memphis Police Department doesn't have the equipment, so we have to borrow the equipment from the FBI is what we use. That equipment has antennas that measure the frequencies in the broadcast of the antennas of the towers within a geographical area that is predetermined. And then it takes those signals and those measurements and plots out a map to see during that drive time how that antenna broadcasts and can receive. And I put in a drive test result from an earlier case from years ago that showed the distance and I guess kind of lines of how the tower was broadcasting and receiving.
Okay. And did you do a drive test as to the areas of the tower surrounding Pt2?
No, sir.
Or Valero gas station?
No.
Or crosstown concourse?
No, sir.
No. So when it comes to kind of the opinions you've given about whether or not a person was in the area, or excuse me, a cell phone was in the area of a particular tower that was serviced by a particular tower, you can't really know where in the area that person would have been.
That's correct.
And they could have been in a different area, right?
Yes, sir.
And because of congestion on the towers or other reasons, service that tower instead.
It was just the device accessed that tower. That's all I can say, sir.
And another thing that affects what tower availability is sometimes towers go down.
Yes, sir.
Right? And just to be clear, you wouldn't have that information when you get your cell tower database. Like you wouldn't know that from the provider that one went down for maintenance.
No, sir. Would not.
Or if it was damaged in some, for a period of time during that, which caused it not to be working properly.
Correct. We would not know that. No, sir.
Okay. And obviously that would, again, affect what you talked about with coverage area.
Yes, sir.
Right.
This nigga ain't making no sense. Like, his questions don't even matter. Like, whatever he asking don't even matter, bro. Like, what the fuck? Like this the worst lawyer ever. I mean, he ain't got nothing to work with, though, but Jesus. That got me fucked up. Like, go ahead and sit down, bro.
Yes, sir.
That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Can you redirect?
Super quick. You testified with regard to the call detail
Love
records
redirect.
and the location, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Were physical extractions done from some of these cell phones?
They were.
And is it Jesse Browning that would have analyzed those physical extractions?
Yes, sir.
No further questions.
Mr. Evans?
Nothing further.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.